I go, oh, we'll put this out so people can see it, get a little taste ahead of time.
Ah, okay.
But thank you for the last conversation. It was so nice and nice to hear the many streams, that come together, and also just what you say, which is so important, which is that it's always personal. Our quest is always personal. And sometimes in the healthcare field and the psychological field, it's like the therapists are supposed to be or assumed to be sort of different or better off or more together or something. But to really acknowledge that we're all in the same boat and we're all like striving to come into our own wholeness. And if we can sort of level the playing field that way, I think it's so nice. So just the acknowledgement that our search for what works is personal. It's for our family. It's for ourselves. It's also for others, and
Mm,
I'm just really grateful this personal and professional integration that you embody. I think that's really
um,
inspiring.
and it's I think it's sometimes also that that what I experience, I learn things through the Feldenkrais training, for example. And then there was later on, there was some crisis in my life. And then I felt like uh, this Feldenkrais training was made for me to master
Mm,
this crisis now,
yeah, yeah.
like getting kind of tools for life,
Hmm.
uh, for daily life, and for common common crises and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. So how do you talk about that? Like, we have this name, organic intelligence, but there is this theme. It sounds like where the sense is like, this everything is somehow. When I look back, it's almost as if it's been arranged. Like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
order of things is intelligently unfolding. How do you personally think about that or describe that?
Mm. You know, I think there is kind of a natural tendency for an evolution or for growth. And I sometimes felt there is a space, or there is a like two aspects, like how can I let the things come to me, and how much do I move towards something, to like take action to get something. And uh, I think for me it's sometimes really not to go like straight on, and I want this, and go there in a very like intentional fashion. It's very much that I try to give space, and also create a space, or also give time that something can come to me.
Hmm.
And so it kind of felt this way with, yeah, also with like organic intelligence. And then I yes, I went for it. You can remember, I went for being an assistant in the second training. But then on the other hand, the offer came to me to participate in the Istanbul training. And in fact, I just had to say, yes, yes, I join you there.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, again, also waiting for what might come next as a call,
Yeah.
And it is another example is my art, so the aquarelle watercolor painting. I did it for myself in courses, and the the pictures got kind of better. And then there was a woman who saw the pictures and said, "Oh, don't you want to put them in a how you say Ausstellung, in an exhibition?"
Hmm.
And then it was like, okay, it came to me, and I said yes, and it was a
Hmm.
challenge, and I was
Yeah.
like uh, trying to give my best to choose the paintings, or to paint more paintings. And but finally it was also like it was not that I would want to have an exhibition, but I was asked, and but then I did also my steps to give my best, to that it's really kind of a good experience, so that it's landing somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a lovely example of this attunement in a way. There is the opportunity and the world speaking to you, and then you meeting that invitation also, and then really fully entering into that dialogue. I for sure think of Aikido in
Mm,
that, really giving oneself into the interaction and Yukimi, or the back and forth of exchange. Also
mhm,
in organic intelligence, that we think the phase three, the system that is organizing, then we take that new organization into the environment, and we are seeking or listening for uh, where the attuned response will be, so that there's this constant movement of attunement, call and response at this level of mutuality, which is
mm.
really different. Like you're saying, it's really different than I myself have become suspect of, like wanting and grasping and seeking, and it has this. It seems this um, quality of compensation. So if I feel like, oh, I need success or status or approval, or all of that seems to be compensation for my own inner experience that I haven't really resolved. So what you're saying sounds like a much more mature approach.
And now it also it also has to do with what we were talking about in the last meeting, like the emergence of things, or like this story that I heard there in this course, and I had forgotten about it. And in a like in the therapy session, the story comes up and emerges in me, so that I can tell it to his client, and it makes perfect sense. And same thing, in fact, then with when you did this movement, that was really attracted to it, because it's like uh, when I touch someone, that in the Feldenkrais work, or in the touch work, in the trauma touch work, like not having so much the intention to manipulate something, you know, but having an action, and an approaching, at the same time giving the space for the client's body, or the client's impulse to meet me, so to
Hmm.
come to me, so to give space for the system to give support. In a way, it's also this creating the environment for growth, or for learning, or for healing, or whatever.
Yes.
So this is like, for me, this is the parallel.
I think now of your topic a little bit, that is, when I think of so many Aikido training sessions, that having a sense of hara, the sense of center, is also this sense of sensitivity, like a radar around one. That is, you sense relationship in Aikido. It's called ma'ai. That sense of what is the space, what is the relational space there, and what's the intention, and being able to move and respond. And that I believe is identified in terms of one's center, hara, and the intelligence of that lower center.
True. You know, um I have this metaphor I often use with clients. Like I have this, and like it finds the lowest point in the bowl, you know,
Mhm.
and like if you imagine the, the circumference here, the outer radius would be the connection to the world. So I do this or I do that or I act like that. It's always the ball goes upwards. So it's creating more sympathetic arousal, more energy. And here it's probably it's I am doing this and this and it's doing that, and it tends to go back to the center if it can only let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what what happens in my opinion that it's often that I begin to define my own identity with what I am doing here, what's my behavior in the world here in the periphery, and it's in that identification with a part of my actions, and so I'm not in the center.
Mm.
And this might also be reflected then in a chronicle tension of the especially of the basic of the movement muscles that are in fact uh, made for movement and are not made for uh, posture, you know. And so the movement muscles get abused in a way for postural functions,
Yes.
and so every other action that I want to take is somehow I have to take it against the tension of what I'm attached here,
Mm. Mm.
and it's
Yes.
it's it's also then not the solution to create a counterpoint because it's like and it's opposition or polarity, but the idea would rather be to explore what's going on here and how I can let go and let myself go, drop back into my center. And
Yes.
then from here on, when this is what I think what uh, Feldenkrais calls neutral,
Mm.
uh, when he says like it's uh, this state from which you can move in any direction without preliminary reorganization of the system.
Wow. Yeah.
And
The
so this
state.
is
Yeah. That you can move in any direction without preliminary pre-organization, but
yeah
just instantaneous movement
yeah.
and action and response.
And he also applies it not only to movement but also to like emotional reactions
Mm.
or thinking. It's not that I'm like pre focused or pre-tension in a certain direction, but it's like I'm free to go in any direction I want. And so
Yes.
then it's this I can move this way or that way, and it's not I must go against this or I need to avoid this or whatever.
Right. I
And
think
that's
of our
yeah
I'm just thinking of our notion here of the the strange attractor. I'll just bring this up on this screen for a moment. That this strange attractor, this being out of center versus the organizing center
Yeah.
that we have here that we move across to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think it's also then like being able to come here in this center, in this hara. It also means my my channels are open
Mhm.
in any direction. So it's also like my system is open to perceive what needs to be perceived in this moment. So it's a clear orientation there.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think that if this system is clear, it's not preset in a certain mode. It's really in this hara that the information that comes in every moment is kind of enough to produce the next step of action
Yeah.
without any need of thinking. You know, it's like
Right.
it's doing its thing. So it's like a keyboard again.
Right. And also a certain quality of just purity of experience and something like non-duality. Duality is, oh, I'm going to think and then I act. But
Yeah.
in fact, the action and the being are really unified in that perspective you're describing.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll show you the newest graphic that will be coming. Um,
Bio.
Yeah, in the center of it all, that center, the center of the biology, hara, for instance, and then all around the isoma, and
Oh,
then the biology to cosmos
yeah,
frames as
yeah.
well.
Okay.
A
So
little bit.
for me, there's always this question in this isoma logo. If orientation should not take a special place, you know, if not
Mhm.
kind of orientation would be kind of just the circle and the four aspects you have from inner perception, the isma, and orientation is in fact the isma from outside in a way, like the
Mhm.
what you see or what you hear from outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Orientation, really is kind of everything in a way.
yeah.
It's the context, it's the experience, it's infused really in it all. What as you were talking, about, like the postural muscles and how they get into a habit that becomes a strange attractor and keeps us off center and then is reflected also in emotional states or cognitive states, how it all of these sensations and cognitions and feelings go together. How, we're getting ready to open the doors to the OI certification course, and an real education for coaches. How much and what kind of education would you think to be really important in terms of just understanding, like, some of the anatomy or physiology? What do you think is like foundational for people maybe to understand?
Mm. So I think what's one foundational aspect is really this differentiation between postural muscles and on the other hand the movement muscles. So I don't know if this is in English also. It's the tonic is like the postural, and basic is the movement muscles.
Hmm,
Fast und tonisch. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
So at least you know that the postural muscles are deep muscles, short, deep, small muscles along the spine on one hand. And on the other hand, what also belongs to this system, what many people are not so aware of, I think, is In front, it's the pelvic floor, it's the transversus muscle from the belly, and the diaphragm. And so, in fact, this space in the belly that the Japanese would call hara. It's the whole space surrounded by these three muscles. And and when there is a good tonus in these muscles, they can support the trunk. So I can put my thorax on this balloon in a way, and it's supported, and then I don't have to hold all in my back.
Mm.
And these muscles are autonomous. You know, they react on gravity, on pressure, on the vertebrae, and the weight of the intestines, and do a reactive action if I let them, if they are like in a if I am really in this state here, they can do it. But especially the stress reaction is like preparing the movement muscles for action. And so it goes like with the long superficial strings of the spine. It goes in this, no, it goes a slight extension there, and your thorax and the whole weight of your arms is held by the muscles in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is okay when it's for a moment, for a threat that comes, or for something you have to run or to act. But it should, in fact, biologically seen, it should be it should come down, it should relax again. And because these muscles are not made for from their just from the anatomy, it's and from the metabolism, they are not made for having a constant tension over a long time, because there is this the blood vessels that go into these muscles. The muscles are thick, and if they are contracted, also the blood circulation gets reduced. And so after a while, the muscle cells in the center there, they don't get enough oxygen. And so this, how do you say, Milchsäure, uh, the the acid,
The
the
pH, right? The degree of acid or base.
yeah, there is acid that is produced in the muscle because the muscle takes the oxygen out of the cell.
Uh-huh.
As a metabolic reaction, there is more acid in the muscle, and
Uh,
this can glue it together, like, and this can create these trigger points and pain and so on.
yeah, like the lactic acid and
Lactic acid, yeah.
yes, yeah.
That's what I meant. And you know that then the problem begins, you know, because you, your system begins to hold itself, to keep itself upright with muscles that are not made for it. And so I think, and and then, like in a classical physiotherapy, you would stretch this muscle, and you would work on the power of the antagonists. And so this is even putting more stress on the system also from the other side. So in fact, good posture is not cannot be found by correction. It can be found by letting go of unnecessary tension. Well, Feldenkrais calls it parasitic tension.
Yes.
And then it can come to a balance again. And so I think this is central, that like if people begin to realize that it's not to fight against the shortening of this muscle, so, but it's about how can I find ways to stimulate the deeper system, the tonic system, the postural system, in order to create the circumstances that these superficial tensions also can let go again and come back to this neutrality point.
Yeah, and to speak also as we do in our work with the autonomous system, like not only the voluntary muscles or the, the movement muscles, but to speak to the system underneath, the nervous system, for instance, and allow that system to send signals of release also, so that the postural muscles can release, and so that the autonomous muscles can then be revitalized in a way.
Yeah, right, right. And this is sometimes it's really tricky because people have attention somewhere. You want to change something, but how can I change something I want to change without doing too much?
Mm-hmm.
And there is like, and also the idea often used in Feldenkrais is not to do a correction in a specific direction, but to explore all the different directions, and to make all the directions more accessible, so the system can find its middle within all these different options.
Yeah, yeah.
So
This sounds so nice, and beginning to look toward what may come as our next part of our conversation, which is the relationship then of that exploration and this middle and this center, like how I can form relationship to this centering intelligence, this centering function, and the literal physiology and anatomy of center. Thanks also for just some of the exploration of anatomy and physiology, and giving us some clue about what we'd like you to contribute also into Heart at Home and our coaching certification education.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
also for that.
And then the other thing on anatomy would be uh, get a sense of the bones, you know,
Hmm.
right? Because the bones are the structure that it's points and angle, or how we say, momentum points, and a lever,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's all the movements, all the tensions that come are arranged around this structure in a way. So at least the movement muscles, uh, and so there is this idea of that the getting to know the skeleton could be something like the my orientation on my body. So I have a body image with a clear sense of where my hip joint is. And so the the closer my inner image is with a real anatomical situation, so the easier the movement will be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now we're coming to our topics of OI, and tracking states of intensity, because where there has been injury, trauma, then say the hip, maybe as I sense it, may have such intensity associated to it that then it disappears. That I immediately sort of dissociate, or the
Yeah,
image is unclear, or it becomes associated with other images, and I don't really have that oriented image of the body. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm, nice. That's super. Thanks, Martin. So what do you think? And I feel like we're leaning. I'm getting ready to ask you questions that would be better for our Friday converse or Saturday. Whenever we're meeting, we're getting into now the real topic of hara and the exploration. So maybe I'll hold off on that question. Anything else that is on your mind?
Mm. Yeah, when I looked for the topic, on how to frame it, it was this idea of hara and the correspondence and the relation to this idea of neutrality, how Feldenkrais describes it.
Hmm.
And then the third thing that I believe is in a similar direction is from Milton Erickson, this middle of nowhere.
Mm,
It's kind of like, okay, this is also, this neutrality is a middle, but it's not defined by a certain action or by a certain behavior.
mm,
So you could call this also like the middle of nowhere, because you can move in any direction you want, even so easily.
yes.
So this is like the other thing that also, another aspect that also comes in there.
It just reminds me of the difference between the fact of this center is a very dynamic and moving and not fixed, versus being stuck on the outside. That's a fixation, and so
Yeah,
it's a position and it's a place and it's a stuckness. Versus here,
it's
there is no position.
yeah.
It's just dynamic movement, and so it can feel like nowhere because we usually think of like, oh, I am somewhere because I am fixed
Mhm,
somewhere.
mhm, mhm.
Mm.
And so I often experience with people when I work on these uh, patterns, these muscular patterns in the action muscles. If people can begin to let it go, then there is a moment where mm, kind of they lose some sense of what they call their identity,
Mhm.
because they were identified with this behavior. I am the one who, like that.
Yeah.
And then to come to this relief, it also means being being happy with not knowing, being happy with uh, just being, and not needing any definition in a behavioral kind for me as a person.
Yeah. Or that it would then include any fixed image of myself,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I can,
constantly in action.
and I can act like that, and I can act like this, but I don't have to, and I don't have to avoid it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, this is the conversation then also of clinical mindfulness. That is mindfulness of one's being in relationship to the world, which is orientation, but also mindfulness and not fixation. This dynamic contribution to the experience of living, as
Hmm.
opposed to the experience of an image of myself in the world.
Yeah, yeah, and what comes in the organic intelligence, like these impulses that come up, the gestures that people show, or the self-soothing movements. Uh, there seems to be an impulse in the system that wants to bring the system to this balance, back to this balance, and that's interesting.
Yes, it is. That's really where we started, wasn't it? Today, just what is that, And you described it. It's this some kind of impulse for healing and wholeness and integration, healing.
Mm.
Well, thank you, Martin. This is a really lovely explication, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation as well. Thank you.
Yeah.